This is Today's Business Leaders. Actionable advice from real-world professionals. And now here's your host, Gabe Arnold.
All right. So today on the show, I have Brian Basilico, and he is the founder of B2B Interactive Marketing, Inc., the Bacon Podcast, and who knows what else. So welcome to the show, Brian.
Hey, Gabe, man. Thanks. It's a pleasure.
I think you were one of the very first podcasts I was ever interviewed on, and I think that was 2 or 3 years ago. A little while ago.
It was. I'd have to go look it up, but if you go Bacon Podcast and check out Gabe, I just, as a matter of fact, you were just on today's podcast too. So you were one of the first ones and the last one I just did. So that's great.
Very cool. Well, thank you for coming on today. We always start with the same question.
Yep.
Tell me when you first realized that you were an entrepreneur.
Let's see. Coming out of the womb, I think.
That's the earliest answer I've gotten so far.
Pretty much coming out of the womb. When I was probably the first entrepreneurial thing I ever did, and this dates me a long time ago. McDonald's used to have these kits for Ronald McDonald House for muscular dystrophy, and they'd give you a carnival and a kit. And so I went and got one and actually set up a carnival at our summer house, invited all the kids over and raised probably, I don't know, $5. But we had carnival games and all that kind of stuff. And that's I think it was maybe 6 at the time. And that's when it started. But my real entrepreneur journey started when I was probably about 15 or 16. I was in a band, and band didn't do good, and I had all this PA gear, and I turned it into a recording studio, and I never looked back from there. And so that was kind of the beginning of the journey. So I started, and I call myself an entrepreneur in 1979 is when I officially launched a business. And
that's cool.
Yeah, and since then I've been in and out of corporations, but this business now, B2B, I'm celebrating 17 years doing this one thing. So
that's very cool. That's pretty interesting. You started off as a recording studio. When I was 15, I recorded in my first studio and was in a band that, of course, you never make money as in a band.
No.
Or not.
No.
Not the average band. You do it for fun. So I still play poorly a little once in a grand while.
Yeah. Well, I played professionally until, the second recording studio I did, I worked for, I did that. I went to work for AT&T as a video producer. So I learned video.
Oh, cool.
Then I opened up a commercial recording studio, and we did a lot of corporate stuff, but I also did jingles. So it was on, the coolest thing is I did True Value Hardware's jingle, and it was on all the Bears football games and it was on CBS. And my dad out in Vegas, all of a sudden he turns on the TV, he's watching the Bears football game, and he goes, "Holy crap, that's my kid singing on TV."
That's
he called
awesome.
me up. It's like, "I just heard you on TV, man." It's like, "Yeah, Dad, it's kind of what I do."
Finally made it.
Yeah, that was as big as it ever got, But we did a lot of corporate stuff. We did IVR, which is interactive voice response for like McDonald's, Motorola. It was the press 1. And when you did it, you had to go press 1, 1, 1. They had to do all of those. And, we had one of the first digital systems would slice up all those little pieces of audio and send it to them, and they'd upload it to the computer. And yeah, it was cool. We did a lot of different things in that.
That's really cool. In the early 2000s, I ran a voice over IP phone company. So I know all about IVRs and audio and all that fun shit.
Yeah, no, it's cool. There's a lot you can do with it, man. It's amazing. Yeah.
So you start out recording like bands, you move into commercial.
Yep.
Give us the short rest of the history of from there to here today.
Excuse me. Been on the phone and talking all day long. So I did the commercial recording studio that was bought out by another company. Started developing websites, CD-ROMs, again, large corporations, doing that kind of stuff. Got headhunted to go work at Arthur Andersen, did not play well in that sandbox. Went to work for an ad agency doing their Google stuff, and then left that and started this in 2001. And the first thing I was doing was business card CDs. Remember those? They're, so I would create videos and I'd put them on these business card CDs, because this was before, I was doing the internet way back in 1994, but then 97 is when it really kicked into gear.
Yeah.
Websites all that time, but that was before the whole, internet marketing revolution and
YouTube and all that stuff.
Oh yeah. Just nothing. There was no Google. There was no nothing at that point. So then this company just kind of evolved over the years, and it really kind of crowned, I would say, when I wrote my book in 2013, which the first book was called It's Not About You, It's About Bacon, Relationship Marketing in a Social Media World. And so, it evolved over time. I started doing websites and started doing that kind of stuff and got into social media. And as I wrote the book, I realized, hey, I'm going to do a how-to book on social media. By the time I got to chapter 3, the book was obsolete. And I said, this is stupid. So why don't we write a why-to book? And that's what I converted it to. That's why it's relationship marketing. And even today, it's 2013 to 2005 years ago. It's still a very valid book because the principles are still there. So that's what I've done. And over the course of the years, it's evolved into, websites, content marketing, content strategy, and really helping companies set up their online strategy and convert that into sales, so it's creating their funnels, so to speak, but I'm not a quote unquote, funnels guy. I can
not the way it is today. Yeah.
No.
The way that it means it today.
Right. Yeah. I know funnels, I do funnels, but it's more exploratory, and I can give you some great examples of stuff if you want to dig into, some of the weeds and, how all this stuff works and what goes on. But the end result is, there's 2 ways to make money on the internet. It's either you drive traffic to a website or you pay to get traffic to a website. You can pay Google. The last call I was on was with a large medical firm setting up AdWords accounts, and, they'll pay all kinds of money to do that. Other people want to earn it, so they'll do content marketing. So blog posts, podcasts, memes, whatever it is, to try to drive traffic. Both of those things work. Just one takes more time and more brain power, and the other one takes more money. And it just depends on what people want to spend, but I help set up all those strategies. So, look at their audience, figure it out, and move on from there.
Very cool. You said something a minute ago about you started the book and it became obsolete, which is technology, right. Social media. That's normal now. We know that now, but
oh, dude, I teach. I have a boot camp that I do every single month, and I do it 1 live, 1 online. I also teach it at colleges and stuff like that. Every single time I do the boot camp, I have to redo the entire 3-hour boot camp, because all of the social media has changed. The buttons have changed. What happens changed. It's like because I cover Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest, Google Plus, and Instagram. I cover the top 6 companies. And every single time I do it, I have to rewrite the entire thing. So it's a lot of work, but that's what I do. I call myself a professional student because I'm constantly learning this stuff so I can teach it to people or implement it for people. That's the way it works.
Yeah, definitely. I did a webinar on LinkedIn a few weeks ago, and literally the next morning, LinkedIn released their voice notes in Messenger. I was like, that would have been nice to have like 1 day earlier.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, and I do the same thing, but I work with, it's like constantly changing. I mean, 3 years ago, I helped a company, triple their income using a strategy on LinkedIn. And you can't do the same thing anymore because Pulse went away. Microsoft bought it, and now LinkedIn is, it's going through its own renaissance. It's turning into Facebook for business, where, people are putting up memes and political posts. And, my favorite is the selfie video of, hi, what color is blue? Blue is the sign of wisdom, and you need more wisdom in your business. So if you want wisdom, come work with me because I'm a life coach that can help you understand blue in your life, and you're just sitting there watching this is like going, lady. Right?
That was an epic impression.
Thank you. Thank you. But that's what happens. It's like, what people on LinkedIn, I got a guy I talked with this morning. The guy sells $5 million used jets. Okay. You put together a couple articles on how to buy a jet, how to sell a jet. You throw it up there, you put it into articles, you put a link to his website, and guess what? He gets a call. He sells a jet. The guy makes $150,000,
Right.
$250,000. You know,
It
it's
was a
not that
successful month.
right. Exactly. Yeah. It's like, but that's the way it works. Is people want information. You know, they want to be educated. I call it infotainment. You know, but it's not that hard.
Yeah.
To kind of go back to the recording studio, the first one I opened in '79, I was doing content marketing back then. But what content marketing looked like in 1979 was I had an Atari 400, and I would sit down and I would type up articles on how to record or what a compressor does, or, you know, why mics matter or something along those lines. And I had some corporate and some band clients and stuff like that. And I literally would print it out on a dot matrix printer, take out a scissors and slice it, paste it to an 11 by 17 sheet, bring it to a printer, have them print it, and then I get it back, put labels on it, and mail it out to my clients. That was content marketing in 1979. No, it's no different today.
Yeah.
It's just the way you deliver it is different. You know, that's all that matters.
Yeah. That's very funny. When I was 16, I launched my own magazine.
Cool.
Almost the same process that you described.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You know, it's like
you draw the pictures, you come up with the content, you do the thing, and then I'd go photocopy a bunch of it and hand it out to my friends, and I still have them somewhere. They're kind of cool.
That is cool. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, somewhere along the line, you discovered PageMaker. Oh, you know, now you could actually page layout stuff, and it's like, oh, this is cool.
You know? And I got my Apple II from somebody, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I got a Windows 98 machine, which
right. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure those are still faster than the Windows machines today. But
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I started a little bit later than you, but definitely was heavily involved in like the origins of the internet and building first websites and BB boards and ICQ and all that kind of stuff. So it's nice to reminisce about the good old days. It was simpler back then.
Well, you know, with simpler, but the thing is I think that people tend to overcomplicate it now because it's all about, you know, excuse me. I mean, people talk about, you know, how to make $1 million with Facebook ads, how to make $1 million on Instagram, how to make $1 million here. It's not that hard. It's like wherever your audience is hanging out, just talk to them.
Right.
You know, I mean, you did a great podcast on sales, man. It's all about having conversations. And, you know, so the question is if you treat online marketing the same way you treat face-to-face networking, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
But people tend to, you know, oh, I gotta learn Facebook ads. I've got to learn this. I've got to learn. No, you don't. You know, you just, you know, if you have a good message, if you have a good story, if you've got something compelling, if you can teach somebody, if you can help them make their lives better, you know, the whole business is really super simple. Find a problem, solve the problem better than anybody else, and sell it. That's it. Yeah. You know, and if people can make money off of that, they will pay you all day long. The whole concept of Facebook ads is really simple. You spend $1, you make $2. If you can get to that point, then you're going to get rich because you can keep doing it until, you know, it starts to dwindle and now gets down to 50 cents and you stop. You know, it's like, right? It's not that hard. But people tend to overcomplicate it.
Yeah. And I think what you keep coming back to, which I like, is these are the principles of business. These are the principles of marketing. These are the principles of how to use social media. You wrote a principles book. And it's still a good book today. Instead of if you wrote how to use Instagram back then, you could just, you know, burn your pile of books because it wouldn't have mattered what you wrote because it's totally different. And
right, exactly.
And I think you're totally right. I think a ton of people just get distracted by shiny objects and fun things to do, and they either accidentally overcomplicate it or out of fear they overcomplicate it so they don't actually have to work on the simple hard things, which are getting good at relationships, selling a good product, actually delivering a solution that makes people money or solves their problem, like you said. So
yeah. Well, and, you know, one of the other basic principles, and I had to learn this when I ran the original recording studio, the corporate one, not the one in the basement, you know, it's cash. It didn't matter. But, you know, when I had a real one with employees and taxes and rent and all that other stuff, you know, I had to learn accounting. So I had to learn Peachtree accounting, and then I went to QuickBooks and all that stuff. And today, you know, the principle is really straightforward, is every Saturday morning I block out time and I balance my books. I look at my books. Did I make money? What did I make money on? What are people paying me for? You know, is it, does this make sense anymore? A perfect example of that kind of logic is back in 2000 and, well, I don't know, 5, 6, I had a CD burner, and I made a lot of money burning CDs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I bought when I owned my recording studio, I bought one of the first CD burners. It was $4,000 for the CD burner, and it was
Wow.
$75 a disc, and usually somewhere around 6 out of 10 would work. So you'd have 4 bad ones and 1 good one, you know, or 6, you'd have 4 bad ones and 6 good ones. And so I had this CD burner, and I was making CDs for people. You know, I'd print them out and put the labels on them, and, you know, it'd be video CDs or audio CDs, or duplicate and do that other stuff. Yeah, you could send it out to a duplication house and stuff like that, but it made me money. It was like, you know, it was a 1,500 CD burner, and then I went in and the thing crashed. It died. And I said, okay, do I get it repaired? No, I couldn't get it repaired. It was too old. So then I said, do I replace it? And I went and looked at it, and it was $2,000. And I said, okay, well, $2,000. And I went and looked at my books, and the year before I made $300. And I said, okay, if I made $300 on duping CDs, why am I going to spend $2,000 to replace it? You know, it's like, it's stupid. So, you know, understanding the basics of your business and accounting and getting fundamental like that is really important. You know, that's how business works.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I don't know if I'm just farther down the road than I was when I was a kid and I did dumb things and didn't understand business like I do today, or if the culture has totally shifted. But nobody has that conversation that nobody shares that. Nobody's like, you don't have to be a CPA, but you do need to know the basics of accounting to run a business.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's, you know, a lot of people, I mean, that's the difference between an entrepreneur and an entrepreneur. And I've done podcasts and blogs on this. Everybody says, you know, hey, I've got a business. Okay, great. They make $50,000 a year in their business. Well, if you're running a true business, usually about 50% of whatever you're doing is going to be expense in one way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. So if you make $50,000, that means your gross annual income that you could potentially pay yourself past taxes and expenses and everything else you've got to do is $25,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got a $25,000 a year business. You could work at, you know, a fast food chain and make that much money. You know, my wife works at a bank and makes more money than that.
Right.
You know, so I say you've got a real business when you hit the 100,000 mark and you're making 50,000 or more. And, you know, so now when you hit the 6 figures, now the goal is to try to make it further down the line. And so once you hit 6 figures, even though it sounds like a lot of money, it's really not, you know.
That's level 1.
Right. You know, I'll go back to another thing. And this is, you know, I have a kid. I got 2 kids. One kid works for PepsiCo, you know, and he makes pretty decent money. But when I was his age, and we were at the kind of the same point, I owned a house, I bought a car for cash, and I was working at AT&T making $40,000. My car cost me $10,000 for a brand new GMC. My house cost me $40,000 for a townhouse. For him to do the same thing, the car is going to cost him $25,000. And the house is, you know, just the same townhouse is at least $150,000, if not $200,000.
Right.
He made $50,000. He makes $10,000 more than I did back in the 80s. And, you know, it's like, how can he afford to get to that place? So, you know, as business people, you've got to understand the income and outflows and understand what you can afford, what you can't, and all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, if you don't really focus on systems and growth, then you end up just buying a job and
right.
And all the stress and liability of being a business owner, and that's not a good deal.
No.
It's better to go work at the bank or work somewhere else. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. So.
Yeah. Or just read the 4-hour work week and sit on a beach and make a ton of money. You know, it's real easy.
Exactly. I love that book, but most people take it the wrong way.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, because the whole book is about VAs and outsourcing.
Right.
You know. And it's
being a manager and building products and like owning a business. It's the most brilliant marketing title ever.
Yeah, well, it is, and Tim Ferriss has made $1 million off it. How many millions of dollars? And another one of my favorite books, the all-time favorite book, is E-Myth Revisited. When I'm talking to people who are entrepreneurs, because you've got the three different tiers. You've got the technician, the entrepreneur, and the manager. Well, actually, it's technician, manager, entrepreneur. Technician is what most people are in their businesses. I burn CDs, I do these things. A manager is somebody who doesn't really like people so much. They just want to sit there and crunch the numbers and do basically run the operation, do those kind of things. The entrepreneur is the big picture thinker, who's out there meeting with people, selling the ideas, getting venture capital. That's the salesperson. That's the person that's creating the vision. And what most people don't realize is you're a mix of all three, and you got to figure out which one of those makes the most sense. And then you got to figure out how to hire to get the rest of those positions done. So
Yeah.
it's really hard to be all three. So you have to hire a manager, which could be a virtual assistant, could be, another company to take care of. Perfect manager for me is I pay an accountant to do my taxes. It's like he manages that part of my business. You've got to figure it. And then technician wise, I've got lots of VAs that help and, do things. I've got teams of people. I've got really good writers. I know you're big into that kind of stuff, writing content, producing graphics, doing logos, writing blogs, posting social media. It's having a team of people below you that really helps your business scale.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think, for me, I have morphed through the stages of technician to manager to entrepreneur, and I don't do much technician stuff anymore. I could, but that's not the ideal. But I kind of move seasonally between management, leadership stuff, and being the entrepreneur, coming up with the idea and pitching and selling and doing like that. Do you think people typically land in one spot and stay there, or is it more of a cycle?
I think it's a cycle. I think there's, depends on the kind of business that you run, depends on how many people, if you've got a quote unquote, if you have a W-2 or W-9 business, depends. If you have a if you have a W-2 business, then you're paying a whole bunch of people, then you really have to be a manager. You have no choice. If you have a W-9 business, then you can get, you can be more of an entrepreneur. But I think part of it too is running a good business is reinventing yourself and realizing where you're at, what the marketplace is like. I could still be doing business card CDs today. I just wouldn't have a house.
Exactly.
It's kind of hard to pay the mortgage on, $200 a year.
That's crazy. I remember seeing those. Now I met somebody that made them.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I still got a bunch of them sitting here, in the closet. I just keep them for nostalgia.
If I need one.
Yeah. I have one CD burner in the entire place. It's a USB CD burner. If I ever need to make one, I could probably still do it, but I don't even know if I got software that'll burn it,
I know. I think the last time I burned a CD was like 2 or 3 years ago. And before that, who knows?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy. So
that's how life is, man. It's like you got to learn to evolve. You said yourself, man, you start with an Apple II and you went to, think of all the way that we've evolved with computers and phones. And, it's hard to believe that the iPhone is 11 years old right now. But, man, I couldn't even imagine my life before. I waited in line for the first one,
Me
and
it
was
too.
like, I held it up like Simba. Hi, the Lion King. It was like, I got the phone. I'm somebody now, and now it's like, holy crap! This is it's so commonplace.
And it successfully made 1 in 10 calls, so it wasn't so bad.
Right, exactly. Well, kind of like the original CD burner,
Exactly. So over time, it gets that more reliable. When we talk about like social media and you mentioned LinkedIn, how it's going through like this renaissance, I think a lot of platforms or tools or technologies or strategies that people uncover these are the 3 phases that I see. There's probably more, but the one is like early adopters are like, this is really cool, and they use it, and that's the organic beginning of that's the cultural beginning of the tool or organization or thing. Then something sparks in the other spheres of the world, and somebody's
Right.
like, oh, we all got to go over here, and then it gets just full of a bunch of spammers and crap, and everything, can go off the rails, and then it settles back down to the real people that are going to use it in the long term.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But it still all boils down to, so, the way in my fourth book, which is called The Bacon System, I talk a lot about this, I'm a firm believer in owning everything. Okay. So in other words, you don't own social media. The bottom line is you don't own Facebook, you don't own LinkedIn, you don't own Twitter, you don't own any of those things.
Mm-hmm.
I pay for a Vimeo account versus using YouTube because at least I own that space. It's $69 a year, $120 a year. It's not super expensive, but I control what goes on. They can't tell me I can post a video, can't post a video. I do this caption contest on Facebook every single night. And, one of the ones that I posted had some lady grabbing a guy. They were climbing up a mountain, and she grabbed his pants and it showed his butt. And I actually went in and kind of, blurred out the cheeks. And the reason I did that is because Facebook, if they see that, could drop your account, block your account, and you're out of there. And somebody said, you really blurred the cheeks? And it's like, yeah, I learned that lesson the hard way. I was blocked for a week. So the thing about social media and all these tools is most people, and they got aggravated with the whole Cambridge Analytica thing. You're not, the bottom line, if you're not paying for it, you're the product being sold. They're collecting your data to sell ads. So once you come to that realization, then you say, okay, now how do I use this without having to pay a ton of money to get my messages out there? So it's still somewhat social media, but it's not quite, business media as it is. So it's an ever evolving thing. You've got to learn not only where the buttons are, how to use it, what are the trends, but also, what's working and what's not working. And a lot of times that's just trial and error. You watch other people, you can read articles, but ultimately it's up to you and what you post and how people connect with you.
Yeah. No, and people can definitely tell if you're sincere and legitimately want to help. And I mean, that comes through in any form of creative thing you do, words, video, images. And then there's also, which is really interesting, the more and more I realize this, I mean, I've known it for a long time, but I've really dug into it more this year, is you can look at each social network. Like Facebook, I always tell people, is like hanging out on your front porch talking to your neighbors.
Right.
LinkedIn is you're going to like a business networking meetings, or like a BNI, or like you show up and you need to be professional. And then, there's a bunch of other analogies there. But the interesting thing is on LinkedIn, there's almost like a preconceived assumption that that person.
Right.
So it's easier to have a warm conversation. Whereas Facebook, it's different. Like there's a different way to start having that relationship. And so the more you know what space you're in and how to play, then it's easier to do that. And I totally agree. You can never depend on a single platform like that because they can kick you off for no good reason at all.
Right. They can suspend your account, even if you're paying for it. I mean, even if you're doing ads, they can still shut your account down. They'll still collect your money and run the ads, but they'll shut your account down. Same thing with LinkedIn. You get paid for Sales Navigator. If they decide you did something against their rules, they'll shut you down, but still collect your money. That's just the way it is. And the other thing is you got to learn how the platforms evolve.
It's definitely been
5 years ago, groups were everything in LinkedIn. You create a group. I mean, I saw people selling groups, creating these big groups of people, turning around and selling them for tens of thousands of dollars because they created this sphere of influence. And now nobody uses groups in LinkedIn, but now groups in Facebook are huge. And I'm just waiting for them to pull the plug on that and start to monetize that. It's like, that'll change the whole dynamic there, so it's just, you just have to kind of go with the flow, learn what's happening and adapt.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. You're probably right. They'll probably monetize them, and it'd be interesting to see how they do it because they definitely own the feed now.
Right.
It's pretty interesting, and especially with a couple feed updates in the last couple of weeks, even it's like, man, they're even more prominent. And earlier this year, they were huge. So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and who knows? I mean, everybody says what's next. I say, I don't know. You tell me. I have no idea. I'd like to. If I did, I'd have my own desert island, and I'd be talking to Richard Branson right now, not you. No offense, dude, but
That's right. Yeah, there's definitely a ton going on there, and like I said, I like your approach to it. It's all principle based, so that you end up farther along, no matter what changes. Of course, the platform is going to change. You have to keep learning, but if you do it the right way, you will pull people off the free platforms into things you own, like email lists and membership sites and like all that stuff, which is definitely huge. People invest everything in one channel, and then that channel has a little hiccup, and then they're on their back.
Well, and I interviewed a guy, the foundation of the Bacon system is three core things. Number one is having a website. Number two is having Google Analytics to measure things, getting back to the accounting side of things. And the third thing is creating great content. And then the second piece is you got to create the content. So audio, video, blogs, memes, whatever it is that you want to do, graphics. And then the third part is delivering the content. So now that you've got this stuff, you deliver people to put it on social media to drive them back to your website, which is where the conversations, the transactions, everything happen. And I interviewed this guy a couple of weeks ago who's a millennial, and I get his point. He says, I don't believe in websites and all this other stuff. And I'm going, okay, that's cool. You can make a fast buck that way. But the problem is you're not building anything foundational. A website can be moved from server to server. The content that you're creating is an asset. One of the things that happens with me is if I have a conversation with somebody, I've got 3.5 years of podcasts. So if somebody comes to me and says, I want to learn about Google Analytics, okay, go to episode 293 and check out my podcast and check out my interview with this analytics expert. And, so go listen to this stuff. And I have this whole entire resource catalog of great information that I can use to make a case of, you want to work with me because been there, done that, do that all the time. So rather than just let's jump on the greatest trend right now and then jump on the next one later. And, that's great. You can make money doing that, but that's tiring. It's not a business. That's that's a fad. It's a series of fads.
That's what always scares me. To have to reinvent that fast is too hard because it changes every quarter. I mean, it's not like, and that's such a short sprint. And that somebody said something similar to me the other day, which it makes me laugh. But I was like, you're on Facebook, right? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, that's a website, right? And like, yeah. And like, that's how they make money.
Right. Yeah.
Websites make money, lots of money. So
right. Yeah, exactly.
It's like, I was having a hard time with that conversation.
Well, I know. Yeah. Yeah. Here, I'm going to blow your mind. You ready?
Yeah.
Are you ready? Okay. What if I told you that the cloud was actually a series of computers?
Is that hard for people to grasp?
It is, yeah. It's in the cloud. No, it's not. It's on a series of computers.
It's on somebody's computer. You're just renting it. And it's better than your desktop.
Right. That's all it is. It's like, but it's the term I call putting perfume on a pig. It's like.
I love it. Yeah. It's great. I mean, it seems to go faster and faster, but I'm not really sure if my son, he's turning 7 this fall, I'm not really sure if he'll experience the same just breakneck light speed changes that you and I did.
He will. Oh yeah. No, it's going to be, I mean, I remember way back in the, there was this, God, I wish I could get the copy of this thing. It was on film. I mean, literally in school it was on film. And it wasn't Future Shock because I've looked that up a few other times, but it basically was talking about the alarm clock of time. And it just, as time moves further, everything accelerates quicker. It's like we went from, 1988, I think. I ended up, in 1988, I ended up buying a hard drive, and I go back to these technologies. It was a 300 megabyte hard drive, and it was $4,000.
Jeez.
Okay, but that's what you needed to record audio. I had one of the first digital studios. Now you can get a 3 terabyte thumb drive for 50 cents at Walmart.
I know.
But it went from 300 meg to. I remember when a 300 meg was like, wow. And then it went to a gig, and then it went to another gig, and now it's terabytes. And, it's like, you just think about how fast it went from, I've got this backup drive. It's called a Drobo. And every time I go to Amazon, it's like I order a 1 terabyte hard drive for $100. And then the next time I go back, I can get a 2 terabyte hard drive for $100. And the next time I go back, it's a 4 terabyte for $100. And this is within 6 months.
Yeah.
Everything is amplifying faster, and the pace of change. There will be a point where I don't think people will be able to absorb it. But for the time being, I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Yeah. And plus, I guess with VR and all that stuff that's coming out, that's the next, there's a lot of, it's insane. It's just insane how fast it's gone so far. And yeah, you're right. It's just like technology. It's going to double in speed and capacity every 18 months. So.
Right. And so, the thing that you have to do, and that's why I'm so big on the systems and the principles and everything else, is those things never change. Right. I could still to this day print out, even though it would be a laser printer, but I could still take that laser printer and still cut it and paste it and take it to a printer and have it printed and mail it to people. And I could probably sell that information for $100 a month.
Yeah.
Or I could do it in a blog, or I can do it in a video, or I can do it in a podcast. It's, the information doesn't change. How you deliver it is the difference. And, the foundational stuff will never change. So that's why, all these tactics, are cool, but they're going to change.
They expire very quickly.
Yes, they do. And they change very quickly. It's like I said, it's LinkedIn groups to Facebook groups. And, there's LinkedIn Pulse to now LinkedIn articles, which have zero anything. And you used to be able to send people to your business page because they got everybody hooked on business page crack. And now the only people that see it are ones that you pay to boost it or pay for ads to get there. And, it's just, it is what it is.
Cool. Well, I definitely agree. There's always a lot going on. And if you stick to the basics and you stick to your principles, then you're going to be in good shape no matter what. So
absolutely,
definitely a good message. So what type of people are you looking to work with, and how can they find you if they want to come hang out with you?
Sure. Well, the bottom line is I help people set up strategies. So, if somebody is, the companies I work with, everything from, $500,000 on up, are the best ones, the ones that know they need a strategy but don't have one in place. And it's usually an online marketing strategy that combines either content marketing and or advertising. So anybody who's, knows they need to do it, has a valid business and wants to grow it. I always evaluate and I look at it and say, can I do something with this? If I can't, I say no. If I don't think I can make money, I don't want them to spend any. But as far as finding me and wanting to check it out, obviously go to the Bacon Podcast, listen to that, listen to Gabe's episode. It's a great episode on sales. You had a great stuff. Go listen to that, see if it makes sense to you. Check out b2b-im.com. That's my blog. It's similar stuff. And just find me on any social media. Just put in Brian Basilico in Google and you will find it everywhere. So Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest, Google+, Instagram, whatever. Any of those things, I'm constantly feeding all of those social platforms. So feel free to connect up and, ask me questions, whatever you want to do.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage you guys to do that. Brian is a steady and faithful and consistent and wise business person. I've followed him for many, many years now. So he's definitely somebody we can all learn from. So thanks so much for being on the show today, Brian.
Hey, man, my pleasure. Thanks again for the opportunity. Hey, folks on Facebook Live, enjoy. Follow me, hit me up on Facebook. I'd love to help you out.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Take care, man. Thanks, Gabe.
You've been listening to Today's Business Leaders with Gabe Arnold. Remember to subscribe on iTunes. For more information, visit todaysbusinessleaders.com.